mean, what the hell is going on? Oh, we're back, I think.
Okay.
Okay, and we are live again. Okay, we're live. I think.
I don't show it yet. No,
I think we have to.
I'm looking.
I think we have to. Hold on. Now, hello, welcome back. With we're here with our 2020 election coverage here at SAC.Media. We have joining us right now our advisor Tony Albertson and our opinions editor Cesar Gonzalez. Welcome, you two. It's really a pleasure to have you here today.
Hello.
Thank you for having us.
Welcome, Caesar. I believe you have some updates from the polls with us. What's going on? California is now presenting its results. It's 8 o'clock, 8:04 here on the West Coast.
So, I just got word from CNN projection that Joe Biden wins California, Oregon, and Washington. This is from CNN.
Okay.
And he also got a New Hampshire. I think we already have that. And Illinois
Yes.
and Missouri. Oh, no. I'm sorry. That's GOP. That is a red state.
We did pick up a Senate seat though, which is a good thing.
Yes, so
we should get another one, hoping.
yes. So Donald Trump wins Kansas, Utah, Louisiana, and 3 of the 5 electoral votes for Nebraska.
Okay.
Democrats will.
So nothing on.
Nothing yet. You're waiting on Arizona, and
waiting on Arizona.
Pennsylvania will take a while too.
Pennsylvania, I believe they weren't going to be counting mail-in ballots until tomorrow. Is that the right state?
That's true.
Okay, and Democrats will retain control of the House of Representatives, according to ABC News. That is just in from Twitter. Doug Jones, a Democratic senator from Alabama, is projected to lose his seat to Tommy Tuberville, a Republican candidate, according to the New York Times. The Republican Party is one spot closer now to maintaining a majority in the Senate.
Yep, that's true.
According to the Associated Press, Biden, it is confirmed, has won California, Washington, and Oregon.
Yep.
Yeah, the ones you said.
Yeah.
Yep, everything you just said. So I just jumped on. As you know, I was a guest earlier, and I was wearing a very pretty shirt, and
I missed it.
I lasted in that after I walked out and I started seeing what was going on. I'm like, nope, I'm going back to my t-shirt just to be comfortable, because this is a nail biter. And the only reason I'm here was just to say that I just think that you've done the most amazing job, you and Monica, and the guests have been just incredible. I can't tell you, like, when you get to there's something that I was going to say to Albert when Albert was on, and it made me think of it when Kim Earhart, our history professor, was talking. And it was when Albert he mentioned how he was one of the people fighting the no on Proposition 8, which was known as Proposition Hate, right? That was the anti-gay marriage proposition. And Albert was so young at the time, and he was one of my students. He was in the newsroom, and I think it was the first year I'd ever known Albert. And there was a student that we had, and she said, there was no way that she could do that because she said that her preacher had told her that gay marriage was wrong. So she started a conversation with Albert, and they talked for about an hour, and she asked questions about why, how long did he choose to be gay? And he explained that he was feeling what he felt when he was 5, and that it would never be his choice. It was who he is. And she came back on Tuesday. Well, it was actually Wednesday was our magazine class, and Tuesday was the election. She came in and she told him that she had voted no because she could never take rights away from him after understanding the story, right? So like I was thinking of this tonight, Kim Earhart talked about just what she has been going through with this idea that we would have Donald Trump again, and how she had such a hard time understanding how people how they don't see her and her wife and her son, that when they vote for someone like Donald Trump, they're voting against them. And it was just a really powerful interview. And then seeing Fabian Pavon and my former student Alfredo Camacho, and hearing them talk about the passion and why they're involved in running for office. These interviews have just been incredible. But what I wanted to say to you, Abraham and Caesar and all of our students, is that this is when you realize the difference that you make in journalism, is that you're having conversations with people, and all of a sudden people start to see them, and they see them as human beings. And if you can even get one person to change the way they think, then you've done something really great. And maybe you're not going to, get the masses to change right now, but little tiny, steps. What did Sylvia, it was such a good line that Sylvia said, and I have to ask her what she said. And I was like, that's so great, about demanding things. And I can't remember, I have to ask her what it was, but I was thinking about a quote that I put up the other day where it said, don't look at the staircase, look at the step. And it's like, you just have to start with one person. And, these interviews tonight, it was just incredible, all of you. So whatever happens, I'm hoping that we still have a good chance. Obviously, I want Biden to win. I think I've made that pretty clear. So we'll see what happens. And I hope you both keep going tonight, as long as, I guess you're going to go a little bit, and we're going to have a few more students on. And where's Monica? I wanted to see this election party that she's at. Are you going off to her soon?
I am not sure whether or not Monica is going to be hopping on. She said right now she's not going to hop on because she's eating, unfortunately.
Well, luckily this is recording, so I'll get to watch it. Okay. So have fun, and if you get any results, and see when you're ready to end it, and we'll just move over to Twitter, and we have students covering on there that'll keep giving us updates. All right, so good job, everybody. And maybe one day I'll actually meet you in person, Caesar, like half of that amazing staff. It's ridiculous,
He's a joy to have at the protests, watching my back.
Yeah.
I know. I feel like, I always hear my students and talk about, like being online and having all these online friends across the world. And I'm such an in-person person. And now I'm like, but I have like the best staff ever, and I haven't met most of them in person. So maybe it works. I don't know. But anyway.
For now.
Right? For now it works.
We have a wonderful staff.
We're making it work.
I know you're making it work. Make it work. Okay, so I'm gonna go. Have a great night.
Don't kick me off.
Thank you, Tony.
Make me the host. Monica's
okay, I'm not going yet. I want to see Monica. Okay. I'm gonna wait to see her. She says she's jumping on. I want to see where she is.
Show us.
I'm so curious about parties in the day of COVID. I want to know what it looks like.
It's like like Russian roulette.
I hope.
With 5 bullets.
I think she's taking care. Hopefully she has her mask. And everyone has a mask on, right? Is she coming on now?
She said, okay, I'm not sure. You have the
I
waiting
just
room.
saw.
She said just this minute that she's gonna jump on briefly. She can give us a little bit of an update where she's at, how
Okay.
it's going, and I'm sure she can come in
Yeah,
with
that's what I
some.
want to know.
She can come in with some
Okay.
updates.
Yeah, that's what I want to know because they're watching. She's watching it live, right?
Yes, I believe so, and it's
As my husband
definitely
is in the other room.
we've definitely got a lot
Just to
of.
tell you how tense it is, how tense it is in our house while we're waiting. I went out. I had this nice dinner planned for tonight. I was going to make this what's called the pasta vazul. It's going to make this great Italian meal. That was for election night. Nice bottle of wine. I go in there. My husband has eaten an entire container of this gelato, like a chocolate gelato. It's like seriously an entire container. And I'm like, it's 6 o'clock, babe. Really? And he's like, I couldn't. I'm sorry. I'm too stressed. And a beer. That's what he was. That's what he had for dinner. I'm like, all right, it's fine.
Justin Biden is up 209 at the polls with Trump bottoming out at 118 so far. This is still developing though. It's
Okay.
270 to
I
win.
just, I know what you're saying. Okay, so one of our students, Christy, who is our editor, I'm doing this for her because she wanted to see this, and I'm like, okay, fine. There you go. There's my Hillary Clinton now.
Thank you,
Okay.
Miss
And if I
Clinton.
can stop, all I want to say.
Shout out to Christy.
All I
Christy,
want
hope
to
you're
say
watching this.
in the words of Hillary Clinton, I bet you wish you voted for me, don't you? Huh? Huh? People? There you go.
Thank you, Tony. Saw that one coming.
All right. So I don't know where she is.
I'm not
Monica,
sure.
I guess I'll be watching from afar.
Yeah, you can tune in, to
I
our.
will
You can
be
tune into
watching
our
you guys
YouTube.
all night. I haven't missed any of this, so.
Haha, I see.
All right. Well, have fun, you two.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate you
All
being
right.
on and your
Alright.
kind words.
Bye.
Caesar, what do you think is going on? Oh, we have two people in the waiting room. Let's actually let them in. Now, we have Jalen.
Who we got
Hall.
in?
We have in now Jalen Hall and Janie Minnick Hall and Monica Inoue. Monica reporting on the scene with her mask on at an election live watch party. So how are things over there, Mon? Staying safe, I hope.
Yeah, so it's just myself and my two friends here that we kind of planned last minute for us to get together because we didn't want to go through this by ourselves. So we just have a small setup here at my friend's house. We have a big projector screen, and we have the ABC News going, and it's really quaint, and it's pretty calm right now. I know it's like the calm before the storm, but it's nice to kind of just go.
I agree.
Definitely. And how about you, Jalen? What are you up
It is
to?
a nice setup though.
Yeah, it's super nice. It's really like relaxing. So we're ready for anything. So.
Great, awesome. Jalen, our news editor, welcome. We're super happy to have you on. And, the more coverage, the better. Do you have any updates for us on what's going on at the polls so far? Reiterations bring us back to where we are.
I was just looking right now. The only new thing that I've seen is that Biden's projected to win California. That's the newest thing I've seen. But other than that, no.
And there we go. Tensions are definitely running high. Right now it's showing that Biden is up 209 in the polls and Trump is at 118, but still anything can change, especially with states like Pennsylvania, I believe, saying that they will begin counting mail-in ballots again tomorrow in the morning. So what are everybody's thoughts here on the election? Definitely everybody has their eye on things, and arguably more than most election years. So what are our thoughts tonight, guys?
Well, I think I'll go. I'll go first. I think that for everyone edge, this year than ever, I've been seeing on air leading up to this day. But more importantly, just the mail ballots and just the record of how many have been sent out and how it's really just affecting and taking a longer time to really finalize the lasting votes. So I think that's why a lot of people, like myself personally, just on edge right now because we still have to wait till tomorrow for votes to be counted, for mail ballot vote.
Thank you, Caesar. Anybody else have some?
That's it. That's all I have to say.
Cool. How about you, Jalen? What are your thoughts on the election coming in tonight?
Yeah, it's pretty nerve-wracking because it's like, even though we're watching this and we're watching numbers come in, it's like, how solid are those numbers? Like, we don't really know. It's kind of just up in the air, and that's scary. And it's just like, we see all this coverage. There's people rallying near the White House. They've been doing that for hours, and it's like, okay, so at what point is something going to happen, or if it does at all? Like, I just feel like tensions are really high and it's scary. So yeah.
And how about you, Mon? Coming in last but not least, what are your thoughts on what's going on tonight?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, we just wanted to hear your thoughts on the election. You know, tensions are obviously running high, and you know, this is an election that arguably has most eyes on it than any election we've seen, at least in our lifetimes. So what are your thoughts?
I'm just anxious for the battleground states, obviously. Like, the West Coast over here is obvious. Like, of course, it was going to go blue. But it's places like, they're showing North Carolina. That's a big one. I actually have a few friends from North Carolina who I was, hoping they gotten out there to vote. Pennsylvania, they said they can only process like 10,000 votes an hour, and they're at like 70,000 votes an hour right now. So it's probably going to go well into Friday until we know the results for Pennsylvania. Florida, obviously, it's neck to neck. So yeah, it's just all the battleground states that I'm really just anxious for, and those are going to take the longest to come through.
All right, thank you so much, you all. This just in a minute ago, and it's reported from Fox News that Donald Trump has won Florida. We'll see more coming in on that. But yeah, definitely we do have a lot of eyes coming in on us. To those of us who are just tuning in, this is SAC.Media's live election 2020 coverage. For more up-to-date news throughout the night and tomorrow, go ahead and find us on SAC on Scene on our Twitter, where we will be tweeting live on election results as they come in. Also, feel free to join us on our Instagram at Mountie.media, Mountie Media, to see some of our live election coverage from earlier this morning. We had reporters at the polls asking voters and poll workers, what's going on. And to those of us who are just tuning in, we hope you've all voted today. Polls in California close at 8 a.m. But if you were in line at 8, you cannot be refused a vote. So, yeah. Any thoughts on any of the propositions, everybody?
I had a lot of friends reach out to me today and ask me about 14, and there was another one. Was it 15? The stem cell research and the property tax that could be sent out to like another house or something if like there was like a flood or fire damage. You guys remember those ones?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had a lot of
Yeah.
friends that didn't know which way to turn with that one, yes or no.
Right.
Okay. We know you have to leave in a second now, Monica, but thank you so much for being here. We appreciate the time that you wanted to step out. Feel free to update us on any poll watching through our Slack. We really appreciate that. Bye, Monica.
Yeah, of
That's
course.
Monica.
And I'll probably be writing something up about the whatever propositions that passed. So, yeah, still waiting it out.
We'll look up.
We'll be looking out for that.
We'll be looking out for that. Politics editor. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Stay safe. While breathing. Bye. Yeah, but as tense as this election is, there's no doubt that it is at least entertaining. keeping us running on our mouse wheel this year, watching how things are playing out. Joe Biden's up 1 at 209 to 118 with Donald Trump. So what are some of the reports you guys have been hearing from the polls? I know I've heard that there have been, there was one incident earlier with one of our reporters at the West Covina poll with a
I've seen that.
Yes, Riley Martinez, our senior staff reporter, was at the West Covina poll at the West Covina Library, and there was just a voter who was who didn't want to show any identification for, I think it was a provisional ballot, but I'm not sure. We will have Riley Martinez on at some point tonight, and we're gonna hear some more from her about what's going on or what was going on at the polls. Tell us, what were your guys' votes like? Did you vote already? And how was it? You vote in person? Did you send in a ballot?
I did a mail-in ballot, but I dropped it off at a ballot box. So I did it with my friend, like a little night group thing together. So we went through the whole ballot together and, researched every single proposition. And that one about the fire insurance thing, that one was a tough one to look for because, it was hard to research. Like I was trying to look it up and it was really hard to understand, and like both sides seemed to be telling the truth, and that one was like hard to decide. And there was a couple like that where it was kind of like the wording of the props were hard to decipher and you really had to do research. But that's why we did it together, because we felt that we needed that extra opinion from each other.
Yeah, there you go. That's smart. That's something I wish I would have done with my friends, because I actually voted in person today, and I brought in my ballot because in the state of California, I'm not too sure how other states are doing it, but in California, if you wanted to go vote in person, you had to give up your mail-in ballot. But when I went today, I showed them my mail-in ballot because I guess they didn't. Then they looked up my name. They were like, "Wait, did you get one mailed?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's this one right here." And one of the guys was like, "Oh, you know what? You could actually use that instead of us printing you out a new one." So I just used that one instead, and was able to get that all done. But yeah, it was just that Proposition 14, which is the stem cell research, and the Proposition 15, which I think is like the fire insurance, was just kind of like, you don't know which way to go, yes or no, because it sounds like something like you don't know if it could affect you in the future or if it can. So it was definitely a tough one. I was there for a little longer than I thought it would be, but I got that all done today, so that was good. And then I think I was able to post that on my Twitter, and it inspired some of my friends to go last minute and fill out that ballot or go in person and do it. And that's when people were reaching out to me like, "Hey, what'd you do for 14, 15?" And I was like, you know what? I'm pretty sure I put yes and then no. I'm not too sure. I can't recall. But yeah, I'm glad I got that done out of the way today. And it wasn't that crazy, surprisingly. But there was definitely lines. Definitely lines.
Where did you go to vote at, Caesar? Where I went, I was here in West Covina, and there wasn't any lines at all. But yeah, I was yesterday.
So I went to the San Bernardino Register of Voters office. So it's like right in the heart of San Bernardino, the county. So you just imagine everyone in that county was just going around. And I didn't know that there was there's a high school where I live called Colony High School, and that's usually where I go to vote. And I was under the impression that they weren't having people, that they were only for early ballot voters, but it turns out that they had it. But my father went and he told me that there was nobody there. So it was just crowded at the other place, because I'm assuming that's where everyone in the county wanted to just go and meet up. And it was actually really intense seeing how many people were there. Like, as I was leaving, there was a line out the door, so I was just like, whoa, okay, I made perfect timing.
Great. I wanted to take us back a second where you were talking about how there is how there was confusing wording on the ballot. You know, I realized that, and I don't know about you two. I think Caesar, you're a little bit older than us, so you've had some more elections under your belt. But I've only voted in the midterm elections in 2018, as well as this is my first presidential election. But when I was there, you know, they had some pretty confusing wording, jargon. I would even call it. Um, is that like? What do you guys think of that? Do you think it's a big problem? Maybe we should simplify the wording.
I think so. I'm all for it.
What about you,
But I
Jay?
definitely noticed. Oh, just really quick. I just definitely noticed that they repetitively use the same words. So it's like once you look it up and you know what that word is, you're like, okay, I remember this word.
Right, which is
But
good.
yeah,
Yeah. I like what I was utilizing a lot was just like people's little cheat sheets that they're posting. Like I got a couple of them off of like social media of people who, you know, I follow or I know are the same like party as I am or have the same ideals that I do. So I was using their little cheat sheets that they were using. Um, and that was really helpful. So, yeah.
I did the same thing. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I went ahead though, and I did a little bit more research. I'll admit it wasn't on purpose. You know, I had to edit some stories about about the propositions. Thank you to Monica Inoue, who I don't know if you're still watching, but you had some very insightful stuff, and I won't be ashamed to admit that I went through and I opened up that story to read through the politics section and you know just take a look at the props and see what was going on, and then I also brought my sample ballot with me, and I just took it with me and for some of the more confusing names on the ballots, you know, I wasn't really sure who was going on at the top of my head, but you know, I used that and it really helped me out. So how many? I wanted to ask you, Jalen. Like, how old are you? Were you able to vote in 2016, or how many elections have you voted in?
I'm 21. In 2016, I wasn't quite 18 yet. My birthday's in December, and obviously the election was in November, so I couldn't vote, which sucked.
Mm.
So yeah, this is my first election that I'm actually voting in.
Yeah, and Caesar, you were able to vote in 2016, right?
Yes, definitely. And I think I want to say 2012. I think, but for sure 2016. Yes.
Yeah, that's great. So coming into this one, this question, so me and you, Jalen, we're under the same age range. You know, we were 17 when I believe 2016 during that election period, and that brings me to prop. I believe it was 16, but I don't want to say it for sure because I don't remember. Thank you to the politics section for saving me at the polls. But what do you think about the proposition trying to get 17-year-olds the right to vote? You know, I want to hear some
Oh
thoughts
yeah.
on that because personally, I wish I could have voted in 2016.
Right. I feel the same way. Like I voted yes on that. I do think that you know, there is 17-year-olds who aren't quite mature and maybe their votes probably won't be so mature. Like, you know, with the Kanye running in 2016 the Harambe, and that was huge. But there's also responsible 17-year-olds who will cast their vote for people they actually believe in and have researched. So I think more votes are always a good thing.
I agree. I think I also chose yes on that specific prop because I think on the counter aspect of your statement, Jalen, that there's some woke 17-year-olds out there, and I think that more than ever, Gen Z has like, in a sense, been stepping it up, especially with what we're seeing in the media, how they've been flooding like all the Trump rallies, all the Stan accounts have been like blocking all uh, like all the Blue Lives Matter hashtags and what things like that. But I just think that if you're able to take in information and know, where you stand with it, I think that you should be allowed to go and vote. So I think I put yes personally.
Okay, this just in, some major news from a swing state, Arizona. Joe Biden declares victory. So Joe Biden has secured a victory in Arizona, according to the New York Post.
Ooh.
Just in with that one. Okay. So
So
yeah,
yeah, he got in all the West Coast states. That's what I just got in as well.
awesome. What are your opinions on this, opinion editor?
I felt like it was probably going to happen. You know, the West Coast has always been very democratic. It's always been very blue. And I know that they were making predictions on that, and I just think that it's awesome.
All right, cool. Thank you so much. Biden wins New Hampshire. I think that was old news, but
Yeah, that's old.
that's
Yeah, I
in
got
as
that one
well
as well.
from our updating chat. Thank you. And okay, I'm gonna send out an
Have you
invite.
guys found a map by any chance of like what they have confirmed already? I've been trying to find one just because that's easier for me to visualize like what it looks like. Because obviously they have the list.
I've been trying
I've
Let me see.
I've been more focused on this broadcast, but I have been taking a glance over here. I just put election numbers so far into Google, and Google has a pretty useful 2020 U.S. election results with a map, as well as, you know, a little chart of who's getting what on in what states. So
Okay.
it is being updated regularly, though. Let me see. Yeah.
Perfect.
Great. So were you guys watching our coverage today? What do you guys think about some of the guests? We definitely had some real powerful speakers on tonight. Especially we loved hearing from Kim Earhart on LGBTQ rights and, you know, her struggles in just, you know, trying to feel seen. So what are you guys' thoughts on any of what they were saying?
I actually didn't get a chance to see that. I'm gonna have to go back and watch it again. But from what Tony was saying, it sounded very compelling.
Yeah, she was talking about like you heard in 2008. I'm not 2008, but when Prop 8 was passed, you know, Prop 8 as they were saying, uh, she just missed. She barely hit the mark when it came to that, and she had her marriage license down. Another, you know, common theme we heard from Albert Cerna, who was our previous editor in chief for all the publications actually out of the Mount SAC journalism program. He was talking about how he is engaged to his fiance, and, you know, they're thinking about literally just having to run up to the city hall and get hitched right there, otherwise risk ending up in another, you know, Prop 8 situation where they wouldn't be able to be legally married. What are you guys' thoughts on any of that? You know, that's kind of just the gist. You obviously would have to listen to the whole, you know, interview to feel the emotion, but they were very powerful.
Yeah, I listened to Albert's. I didn't get to see the history professor. Unfortunately, it was out, but I listened to Albert's and like just listening to him talk about that and how immediately and like concerned he was about that, which a given, like he should be concerned about that. It just sucks. Like that's a reality for a lot of Americans right now. That's a reality for me too. Like I'm bisexual and like who knows, you know, in the future if I wanted to marry a woman, could I? I don't know. You know, so it sucks. It's a harsh
Yeah.
reality.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off like that. But
Okay.
no, I agree. As someone that also belongs to the LGBTQ community, I'm also bisexual, and you know that's why I'm a little like sad I didn't get to catch her, you know, statement of what she had to say. But it's just unfortunate because a lot of people, it's just their rights are getting taken away, and I know for some people today that are just thinking about it all at work, and some people would rather like look out for themselves rather than to, you know, look out for everyone else's, you know, rights equally. And I just think it's sad, it's disappointing. And you know, I actually did like a spotlight feature on a friend who is gay, and you know, growing up in high school, he like, it was around the time of the Proposition 8, and he told me that when growing up, he knew people that he never thought would say no to Prop 8, and it kind of opened his eyes, like, but you're my friend, but here you are saying no on Prop 8, you know. So, he told him, like, you know, he told me that it just kind of opened his eyes to, like, how people really are and where they stand with a lot of things like that. So it's very unfortunate, but we'll see what happens.
That was the same feeling for me when they confirmed Amy Coney Barrett. It was kind of like, okay, what's on the now? Like, what do we even expect? So that's scary.
Yeah, that was just, and you know, I actually had the liberty of writing an article about that, an opinion piece, and it really, really came from the heart. I mean, and of course, you know, I had to do my own research on this woman because I didn't even know who this woman was. I just what she stands for, and honestly, like, I just couldn't find anything positive. And you know, I don't know. I just it's we have to wait and see what's gonna happen because she does have a seat in the Supreme Court now, whether we like it or not. So it's one of those things.
Whatever
I
you're,
know not to get on the deep end, but I mean, it's election night.
it is election night, and like it or not, we all have things riding on this. But yeah, like we said, it is definitely a very tense election night, and we have a lot of eyes on it tonight. So as the evening wears on, you know, we're gonna have some more news coming in. For those of us who are just tuning in, and I see that a few people have, go ahead and check us out on SAC on Scene for any live coverage. We're going to be live tweeting all night with our students. And check us out on Instagram at SAC.Media for our live coverage from the morning. We had people at the polls. We have student insights, young voters who are here trying to get their voices out. So yeah, definitely a crazy night tonight with everything going on.
So I was actually, before we came in today, I was actually on Instagram, and I seen, I don't know if you are familiar with, like, The Daily Show on Comedy Central.
Yes.
With Noah Trevor.
Trevor Noah, yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, the Daily Show account posted a video. I'm not too sure how recent or old it is, but it was with let me just pull it up really quick so I know what I'm talking about. So it's with Ronnie Chang, and he went on and he asked, should voting be mandatory? And, you know, just the same way taxes are, and I believe there's another thing he said, that it's just like two things in the United States that's just mandatory. Why shouldn't voting be mandatory? And he actually went around different parts of the U.S. and asked different, you know, citizens, Americans, if they thought voting would ever be mandatory in states. So what do you guys think?
Well, definitely we saw 44% of Americans not vote in 2016. You know, personally, I've known people who said they didn't want to vote, who, you know, just thought it didn't make a difference, but obviously 44% is a lot. I think it really should be mandatory. You know, we're here, people who care about this country, you know, should get up and go vote because, you know, there are people that only care about themselves that'll do that. But I won't say more about that. But voting, you know, it's a right that I have a lot of people in my life that, you know, just they don't have that. And like we had Clyde Austin Marty earlier, our Voices correspondent come on from the Dream program at Mount SAC, an undocumented student who doesn't have the right to vote. You know, he was talking about in his piece that he wrote for us that, you know, people should vote because there are those of us who can't. People that live in this country who have, you know, they were brought to this country at a young age. They don't know any other life. but they're still affected by everything, and they don't have a voice. I think it's important in that aspect most of all, because there are people in our community that can't fight for themselves. So who are we as American citizens if not watchful for things like that? So that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree with that. I don't know. I know there's always people who are going to be like, well, I don't like either of the candidates and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay. But still, there's someone who you align more with than the other, regardless of how you feel personally about that person. Like, there's a bigger picture here than just you. So, yeah, people should utilize that right if they have it, for others who can't, at least.
Yeah, I agree. And it's crazy because this reporter actually did state that voting is mandatory in 22 countries, including a quote-unquote country drunker, crazier, and whiter than America, which is Australia, which I think is kind of crazy. And then he did go on and interview the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister is, saying, regardless of the reputation that Australia has, it's mandatory in this country to vote for their next leader. And honestly, I think that if we had that mandate in America, in the United States, I think a lot of there'd be better outcomes. Definitely, there'd be a lot better outcomes. There wouldn't be any room for, fraud or like whatever Trump has made claims to, or whoever's made claims to mail ballots being messed with or anything like that, because it's mandatory. It's you get in trouble if you don't vote. It's the same way you get in trouble if you don't do taxes. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and I also agree. I don't think that would ever happen in the United States just because it's the land of the free. But here's to wishing, right? Like,
Yeah.
I have a hotter take on that. I think that election day should just be a holiday. And
I agree.
Businesses open so that people are aware of what's going on and have a whole day to go vote.
People would have no excuse. They would have no excuse. You're so right. I did not even think of that. It didn't even click.
How do you think people would react if voting was made a mandate?
I think they would definitely react how you would think they react, and they would throw a fit. They would throw a fit. I think that's my opinion. Sticking to it.
People don't like to be told what to do in this country,
Yep.
Even though they like to abide by the rules and regulations from years past. So
It's funny how that works.
Yeah. The poor politician who would mandate that might be voted right out of office, but I think if he did, that would mean he did something right, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. To those of us who are just joining us, this is SAC.Media's 2020 coverage. We're here with our news editor, Jalen Minnick Hall, and our opinion editor, Cesar Gonzalez, who has also been our features editor, and our news editor has a lot of under his resume this year.
Yeah.
Welcome over, Cesar. I don't believe you were the features editor. I got that wrong, didn't I? But
yeah.
You've had a few.
No. Yeah.
You've had a few with us.
Community news.
There you go. Campus news, community news.
Campus news.
Community news, and
then back to opinions editor.
Absolutely. Okay. This just in. We have joining us Riley Martinez, who is one of our senior staff reporters. She's going to be joining us shortly. And here she is. Welcome, Riley. This is Riley Martinez, a senior staff reporter for SAC.Media, who's been on the staff, who was covering the election live this morning. She actually visited one of the polls. Welcome, Riley. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well tonight. I'm sitting in my living room, currently watching the election live on ABC.
Awesome, great. So you want to tell us a little bit about your coverage from earlier today? How was it being over at the polls?
So earlier today, I went to two different polls, just because I did get notice that there may have been a issue going on at the West Covina Library, and there was when I showed up. Prior to that, I was at the Veterans of Foreign Wars center, where it was a very quiet polling station. There weren't too many people turning out at that one, but at the West Covina Public Library, there was an incident where the uh, female who was in charge, the volunteer who was in charge of the polling station, actually conducted a citizen's arrest on a very unruly individual and requested the police escort him out of the building.
Wow, and do you want to tell us a little bit about how that was? What was it like? What for what reason, was this person arrested as in a citizen's arrest, which is something we don't see too often these days?
No, we definitely don't. And when I showed up, it seemed that the police had already escorted him out once, and that's where I came into the picture. It appeared that he was possibly an individual with some mental health issues or a mental health problem, and he was requesting um, very, I would say, like strongly that he receive a secret ballot and would refuse to give up any name or date of birth or any location where he might be residing as far as like his residence to receive a proper ballot to vote.
Crazy. Well, we're glad nobody ended up getting hurt out of that. And hopefully he was able to get his vote in, I guess. Awesome. So yeah, it sounds like the other West Covina polling station was pretty empty. Wanted to ask, how did you cast your ballot this year? Did you go ahead and send it in the mail in, or did you vote in person?
Um, well, I'm someone who really enjoys the act of voting, so I kept it old fashioned and I actually went ahead and walked into the voting station at the library and casted my vote.
Okay, you want to tell us a little bit about how that was? Do you think it differed very much from voting during a year in which we're not experiencing a global pandemic? Did you feel safe when it came to voting with the pandemic? Did you see a lot of sanitization and guidelines being followed?
I did actually. They had tape markers and also they had, uh, I guess they were like huge stickers on the floor where they requested that every person who was standing in line stand at least 6 feet apart. As soon as you got in the first door of the West Covina Library, there was a sanitation station where you would sanitize your hands with some alcohol. And if you only wanted to do that, you could, but they did also have gloves for you to put on to remain completely contact free, as well as all of the voting polls were staggered, just as they were staggered at the Veterans of Foreign Wars. That way, you had about a 6 foot distance between anyone who might have been voting on the same side as you.
Okay, definitely sounds like people were following voters' guidelines, safety guidelines this year
Of
at the
course, and
polls.
everyone was also wearing a mask.
Cool. And I just wanted to quickly update on local positions coming in. And as of now, earlier we had on Alfredo Camacho, who is running for the Pomona Unified School District. Right now, he is down 47% to Lorena Gonzalez at 52.64%. Um, Unfortunately, we have down Fabian Pavon is losing district area number 7 for the Board of Trustees to Manuel Baca, who is at 50%, whereas he is at 28.16% in the polls. And Alberto M. Sanchez is down, as a runner-up at 21.76%. So that is an update from our earlier guest who we had on today. It seems as though Alfredo Camacho may have a chance at getting his position for the Pomona Unified School District. We'll have more on that coming up either today or tomorrow, depending on when the results will be finalized. So that's where we are so far with the polls. according to the New York Times, the leader is currently Joe Biden with 209 to 118 votes. But we will not, it seems, be announcing a winner tonight. We're gonna have to wait until tomorrow to see what will be going on. How are our thoughts so far on the election tonight, guys? Tensions are still running high.
I believe that there was a much bigger turnout in voting as far as mail-in ballots. So I think that is why, that may be one of the biggest factors in why we're not going to know by tonight who is going to win this election. Because that is a lengthier process than just the ballot being casted and being in the system if you were to vote in person.
No, it's funny that you say that, Riley, because we were just talking about that. I brought it up that this election specifically is more having people on edge, like myself, personally speaking, because of that. We won't know until tomorrow. It's not going to be tonight, but we're going to be announced the winner, and we do have to wait till tomorrow. So it's like everyone's just like, ugh. So yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that again, because I was just thinking the exact same thing. Like, we're not going to know. And I have a lot of people just like freaking out.
I would definitely call this presidential election a nail biter. As compared to any in the past, this will be one of those memorable elections, like one of those memorable sports events where people bite their nails and it's down to the wire whether or not either side is going to be able to make that last 3-point shot.
That sounds very familiar here in downtown LA. Sounds like something.
We have had a lot of nail biter moments in the last month.
Oh, absolutely. October seems to have lasted a whole year with a lot of breaking news, coming out. And I feel as though, we've already had enough time to have 2 pandemics during this month. This just in as well. Cori Bush has become Missouri's first black congresswoman. So that's some more breaking news. Okay, for sure. All right. And so the Republican Party leads the Senate 45 to 43 with 51 to control. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what that means. Okay. Yes, Caesar?
Did we already get the update about the Dems keeping the House? The Democrats keeping the House?
I believe we did, yes. Democrats have kept the House. There's a few seats. I don't know where we are with the Senate, but there are a few seats that they would have to win to flip that. Do we have any updates on that so far?
I haven't seen any updates come out yet, but as soon as I do, I will definitely keep you guys posted.
We do have in from Colorado on a Proposition 115, which would be a 22-week abortion ban initiative, which was rejected by voters, according to CNN, coming in from our Twitter live stream. Those of us who are joining the stream now or recently joining, please go ahead and follow us on Twitter at SAC.Scene for live election coverage, which will most likely be going on after our live stream ends here tonight. And also go check us out on Instagram at Mountie.Media for some live events, including Riley here, who went and covered West Covina polling stations. Sure to be very insightful for those of us who didn't get the chance to step into an actual polling place this year. But definitely it's important to stay safe this year. We don't want to raise those numbers. We can't have dead air time. So Riley, I believe you were on the SAC Attack team are you part of the SAC Attack video production project?
No, I don't believe I was part of the video production project this,
Wow.
but I was interviewed.
Yeah, okay. So you want to tell us a little bit about how it was being on the other side of that? It was definitely a very interesting
Oh,
video, and I don't know if you got the chance to see it, but it came out beautifully produced.
I didn't get the chance to see it yet, but it was definitely an interesting role reversal as far as being the interviewee and not being the interviewer. You definitely get you gain more respect being on the opposite side and being the person who's in the hot seat and having to come up with interesting and new responses to questions, something that hasn't been done, something a little more insightful, something that will actually, hopefully, empower other students.
Definitely. Awesome. Okay. And then I'm not sure if you watched our live coverage earlier with Albert. I know Jalen did, but one of the talking points he had there, and we're all young, up and coming journalists who will hopefully, in a few years be working for what one of my advisors for my internship calls the bigs, LA Times, New York Times, um, or National Geographic, hopefully. Um, so one of the things that he talked about was that after these 4 years, there definitely has been an evolution in what people are calling fake news into something bigger than just pointing and name calling kind of thing. And he said, and I think his words were, you know, there's no way we're gonna go back to normal, but there's no reason for us, to want to go back to normal. There should be a change in how we do journalism. And moving forward, what are some of your guys' goals? Would you say when it comes to building your career up as journalists in a whole new kind of world that's evolving. We haven't seen anything like this, and we're definitely coming into something absolutely new, a different beast. I want to hear your thoughts on that. Jalen, you can start since you were there for Albert's spiel.
Yeah, I just what I took from that is just like check again, and then do it a third time. Also, just actually being there and getting people's stories out there, even if you know someone denies you, just to keep pushing for something that you believe in. I think is really important, and something that he emphasized. That's my main goal. I think is just to put people's stories out there who don't really get to have a say, and do something that you believe in, and not give up on it just because somebody says no to you. Yeah.
I definitely agree with what Jalen said. I think that the landscape for journalism in the future, there are a lot of changes that need to be made, especially as far as Jalen mentioned, checking and fact checking. It in it's been brought to the attention that a lot of publications and a lot of people out there aren't being diligent with the facts that they're putting out, and as journalists we have that responsibility to make sure we are reporting the truth and the facts, not not hiding them or not bending them to a bias just because we want to feed into that sensationalism that's developed in journalism. There is a huge there should be a huge pushback in the next few years in the journalism landscape as far as making a point to be ethical with how we report and to keep morals in there, because journalism should be something that has morals deeply tied to the job that we're doing.
And also not just rushing all the time. Like you don't have to put something out as soon as something happens if you don't know all the facts. Wait a second, breathe, and take it in.
Exactly.
Before publishing something.
Exactly. I believe that too many publications out there have stressed the importance of being first and being the publication or the individual who breaks the story. But I believe it's much more important to accurately report the story than be the first one to break the story and have to go back and redact something or put out an addendum to something, you know, fix any flaws that you left in there because you were in such a rush to be the, you know, the first news station, broadcasting news station to break a story that's definitely going to have that sensationalism. Because, I mean, you didn't see the Washington Post do that when they were a part of the Watergate scandal and when they broke the story. They sat on it. They sat on it for a very long time before they broke that story.
What about you, Caesar? We haven't heard anything from you on this new landscape of journalism. What are your thoughts of a little bit of what Albert said about, you know, strive to become better journalists and fight the fake news, you know, the process through which it's grown?
Well, before I get into that spiel of what I had to say, I don't know if we talked about this or this update has been brought up, but the Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Republican businesswoman for, you know, who was there and endorsing QAnon, has a seat in Congress now. And she's from the state of Georgia. So, about that, about fact checking and being a journalist in these times, I think that there's a few things, as myself, I feel over the times, being into journalism, being a journalist major, I noticed that you have to be organized. Even though, like, things are just everywhere, you want to, like, come up with a list, you know, make a list for yourself. Stay organized. And then also, make sure you have contacts that you can reach out to for certain things. You know, if you want a good source from somebody, reach out to that person. Because I've learned that, you know, especially doing news editing, I'm pretty sure, Jalen, you can attest to this. It hits a lot different when you actually have a source from somebody on the scene, or they're giving you your opinion on a matter. And, you know, and when you read your own, had that source, you're just like, whoa, okay, now it sounds better. Definitely fact checking for sure. I agree with everything that everyone you said. If you want to get that story out there, or you want to be the first one, you know, I don't know, I guess you can kind of go into saying like it's really a race. I mean, it is competitive, but at the same time, you got to just be careful, because being a journalist, I think to me it's kind of like a responsibility. And, you know, like that Spider-Man saying goes, you know, with great power comes great responsibility. And if people read your stuff and you're not fact checking, you can lead someone astray. And you never want to do that with journalism. You know, you always want to stay in the narrow path. You want to be as unbiased as possible. I mean, and of course, unless you're writing an opinion piece, you know, that's all you, blow it up. But yeah, definitely, I think those are just three things that if anyone that wants to be a journalist can just keep that, you know, with themselves and just really go at it, they can be successful in it, and then they can get far with it as well.
Yeah.
Just like being aware that you have an audience.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
I mean,
Exactly.
if you have the dream and the drive to go into journalism, you definitely need to be aware that you have an audience. And like both of you, you know, you're responsible. You are responsible to inform them and to inform them accurately, because at the end of the day, our biggest weapon as journalists is the freedom of speech that is in the Bill of Rights, in the amendments to the Bill of Rights. And, you know, we have to use that tool to our benefit, to be able to benefit all of these in our country, to accurately inform them of legislation and, you know, any business malpractice, any kind of major issues that could affect them.
Definitely, and to reiterate on some of what Albert said earlier, journalism is the fourth estate. The fourth estate, if you don't know, is that is us journalists who are there to inform the public on what's going on in a democracy. It's perfectly viable to say that an uninformed citizen is poison to a democracy. How are the people going to vote on policy and legislature when they are not, informed on what's going on? And that's why, as many of you said, and I totally agree, it's our duty to report the facts and nothing but, though I do have to disagree in one thing, that we shouldn't publish if we don't know all the facts. We should publish the facts. When we have them, they should go up. It's our responsibility not to sit on news, but it is also our responsibility to make sure that we do put up the facts. If it has to be a short story for what we have now, so be it. But if it's the facts, that's the responsible thing to do. But definitely, we're all on the same page about how the 24-hour news cycle, monetizing journalism, it's nice to have those clicks. Trust me, I've had a story in the top 5 on our website. I've seen stories jump up to the top 1 with 2,000 views in a couple of days, and it's beautiful to see that. The good thing is that those are hard news pieces, whether or not it be a couple of lines. It's the facts. So yeah, I know we're all young journalists. Some of us have been doing it for longer than others, but what are some of the, since we're on this topic, some of the issues that you guys have run into when it comes to doing your job as journalists? Student press is not always taken seriously, unfortunately, and I can tell you that I've been up that route more than once. And maybe if you guys want to share some stories about, what are some of the things you've run into?
I've been fortunate enough to not have to run into any uncomfortable experiences where I'm not being taken seriously, especially as recently as today, having to speak with the police officers. I was surprised given what's going on in the political atmosphere and in society right now as far as the pushback against police, that they were so willing and also so polite in talking to me. They had no qualms in talking to me. They did prefer not to be recorded, and I didn't want to push back against that and possibly cause the situation to get a little too volatile, so I respected that. But they had no problem with talking with me on an Instagram live and allowing anyone who was viewing the live and anyone who might view the live, because it does get saved to the stories, to be aware of what's going on. At the end of the day, what all of the officers stated is that they're here for us to keep us safe, and that's what they want to do. So I think that while there definitely has been, and there are a lot of bad officers out there, I think there are a lot of officers who go into it for the right reason. I think
I'll go
that,
next.
Go for it.
Oh no, I'm sorry, were you done?
no apologies. I think that unfortunately though, there have been a lot of instances where student journalists have been brutalized by police officers during activist movements.
Yeah, no, especially now. I don't think that my experience has been like that far out. I mean, when Abraham and I went to go cover a protest in Hollywood, Abraham, I don't know if you remember when I went to interview the high school student. I obviously he had to go ask his parents for permission before speaking to me, being a minor. And I had my press pass, and I was able, but I had a mask on. It was loud, so I don't know if they were able to hear me, now introducing myself, where I'm from, and I forgot what his parents said. What did she say? They said they thought I was.
They asked if you were QAnon. They asked if you were QAnon.
There we go. That's what they said. I was like, no. I didn't even hear what they said until you told me after, and I was like, wait, what? Are you serious? But after I reassured them that we were SAC.Media, we were a college-run
Your student press.
media site outlet, they were like, oh yeah, no, it's fine, and I was able to get my interview from this high school student. But other than that, I think the only negative experience I've had being someone from the press is when I was back at Rio Hondo and I was, interviewing students on campus. I just felt like a lot of the students they would entertain the idea that I was interviewing them, but they weren't taking it seriously. And it's just funny because I remember being a freshman in college myself way back in the day. Well, not that back in the day, 2008, not that back in the day, but I just remember having someone come up to me and asking me, what my major was, and I was just kind of like taken back because I'm like, wait, who are you, and then they're like, oh, we're from Rio Hondo Press, and I was just like, oh, okay, and then I was able to talk to them, but I guess when the positions switched and I was the one asking students for questions, I'm like, I don't know, maybe I was just asking the wrong students or something like that. But like I said, I don't think I've had a negative experience like getting, beat on at a protest or anything like that. But my heart goes out for all those journalists out there that had to endure that, things like that. That's not right.
Yeah, I haven't had any, well, I did have one bad experience early on. Before I was an editor, I was reporting at a protest in my hometown, and I identified myself as a student journalist to a cop, and then he proceeded to sexually harass me, which doesn't make sense after I told him I was a student journalist, and then he was put on blast. But other than that, the only problems I faced is people just not replying after you reach out to them for an interview, and that's about it. But everyone else I've interviewed has been super kind and responsive and had great insight into what I needed. So I don't know, it's just really not refreshing, but what's the word I'm looking for?
It's better.
Rewarding?
Rewarding. Yeah,
That's a good way to put
Okay,
it.
all right.
Yeah, definitely. We've all gone through, different things. Personally, I prefer writing feature style stories. Kind of like in-depth stuff that's less newsy. But I have had some experiences when it comes to reporting on news. I've had to interview the president of Mount SAC. I've had to interview. I've been on stories where we've really reported on some more difficult issues on campus and in the communities, and sometimes it can just be really difficult, and you find yourself being stonewalled by the powers that be. There are laws in place, like Mount SAC has violated the Clary Act, and sometimes or almost have in refusing to give us information on police reports and stuff, which is a mandate. So there are definitely people out there that don't want things known. I don't know how many of you were on watching when Tony and Sylvia Green were talking, but there was really some important insight to why Tony is how she is. She went before I continue, I just do want to include that Joe Biden has won Hawaii's 4 electoral votes according to the Associated Press, and he has won Minnesota and its 10 electoral college votes according to Time magazine. And in case we haven't done this already, the Democratic Party leads the House of Representatives 205 to 178, with 218 to control. So that is in just now from our helpful Twitter. For those of us just logging on right now to watch our live coverage of the election 2020 for SAC.Media, go ahead and follow us at SAC on Scene on Twitter, where we will be covering the election live after we end, and this stream will end at 10 o'clock. Anyway, yeah, there are definitely, sorry to interrupt, but there are definitely some experiences that are more difficult when it comes to writing on news. And I was talking about how Tony went through it with LA Trade Tech College, where they didn't want them to publish the newspaper again, and they said, and I quote, that Tony said, that the last thing they need is some students snooping around right now. Um, and so when they've published their first edition of the newspaper, Tony was fired. The newspaper was um, scrapped, and that was a whole mess. One of the things I said was I really can't imagine if that had ever happened, to SAC.Media. Like I said, SAC.Media is my life. I've kind of dedicated, this year to it. I tore apart my whole kitchen to be here tonight, covering it live. There's a softbox behind me and a green screen right here, and like 4 laptops. How do you guys feel about that? Why, like, how would you feel if you were here on SAC.Media covering on some important events and, your administration came and tore it down? I wanted to hear some insight from you guys.
I would feel, I guess for a moment, I would feel dejected, definitely, because, I mean, everyone who's working at SAC.Media is there because they really love journalism, and this is something they want to pursue as their career, So you're there to get guidance from an amazing head of the department like Tony, and guidance from, your peers, people who have been there longer than you, people who are working on the editing staff, like Jalen, and you as well, Caesar. It's, it would tear a hole in me for sure if I would go through something like that. But also, I believe that depending on the type of person you were, it would definitely light a fire under me to, fine, they're taking the paper away from me. That doesn't stop me from being an independent journalist. I'm still here. I'm still taking these courses. I've learned enough as far as what I've learned in these courses up to this point. I can independently report. I could start a WordPress. I could start my own website. Doesn't have to be in affiliation with the college, but I can still be reporting on what's going on in the city that I'm living in. So I think it would just impassion me more, to try and still keep students, informed, whether it be they're reading my own blog or it's a Twitter that I may be helping run. But I believe that it should definitely, if that were to ever happen, it should definitely impassion journalist students to chase it even harder, because they were doing something right if they upset the school board enough to disband the paper.
Yeah, I agree. I think I would just go full blown like Hulk. Like, I'm not the one. Like, I'm not gonna take that. So, yeah. Like, obviously I would take an L in layman's terms, but that's not gonna just pass. And of course they're gonna be exposed. I'm gonna expose them as an independent journalist to that story and whatever they're doing and whatever they're trying to suppress. But that was also kind of like how I felt with our president, just completely discouraging media and journalists during all the protests and everything. It just felt like a blatant attack on us, and like, what do we do now? Like, we're being discredited as student journalists, and for what? It's, I don't know, it just kind of, not to be crude, but it kind of does light a fire under my ass. Like, no, I won't accept that. So.
Yeah, I would definitely feel some type of way. It'd be a spiral of emotions. I would feel crushed. I would feel upset, and I would feel a little devastated, because it's like, I mean, just in the moment type of thing. But I agree with you, Riley. Like, I would just take this would make more initiative for me to be like, what, I'm just gonna do something else on the side, and just push me to be a better journalist. But Yeah, I wouldn't even know how to feel it. Like, that's such a deep question because I've also put a lot of time into SAC.Media and juggling 5 classes this semester, which I don't know how I'm doing it, but I'm doing it. On top of SAC.Media is like, it's like, whoa. And just being able to go back and like know that it's there and like, okay, like there's my stuff, there's the work, there's all of our work. It's just rewarding. It's just rewarding. So just like whatever the opposite of that feeling is exactly how I would feel. Whether it be rage or just being really, really sad, I would just be taken back. So that's a very good rhetoric. I'm glad it's rhetoric and not happening. I can only imagine how Tony felt because I give it to that lady, man. Like,
Devastated, I'm sure. Yeah, definitely. I was gonna say something, but I forgot entirely. But yeah, I'm glad. I remember. I'm glad we have, journalists on our staff who live, eat, breathe, and sleep journalism, and that we're all willing to jump into arms to do a militia journalism group and get that news out there. So that's going to be one of the things I mentioned at the end of the semester. Thank you guys. But definitely, journalism is very important. And I guess we're going down this wormhole of journalism. What are some of the things you guys hope to achieve, throughout this year? We definitely have a lot of things to report on. What are some things you guys want to work on the rest of this year while we're on the staff together?
I mean, I'll go ahead and start. I'm currently only in the Journalism 102 course, but I am extremely excited for the opportunity towards the end of this semester to work on an investigative piece. Because as AB knows, whereas he is not someone who's so in love with the newsy side of journalism, he's more into features. I am someone who, given the option, would choose a career to eat, sleep, and breathe news. I love investigative news and pieces that, break on either corrupt politicians, corrupt business practices, violations of human rights, because these are all things that are very important that need to be reported on, because, these are people who are being exploited and people who don't have the voice or the means to stand up for themselves. And you as a journalist, like Abraham's mentioned, are the fourth estate. If there's people who are being made voiceless and being backed into a corner and can't fight for themselves, you need to fight for them. So I am very excited and looking forward to the opportunity to work on an investigative piece.
I think for myself, I feel like I've run a lot of my course per se in the few years that I have under my belt being a journalist back at Rio, here at SAC.Media, with SAC.Media, being an editor, being a writer, being on the scene, doing interviews. I definitely want, it's a personal goal of myself to get my podcast going or possibly get my YouTube channel going. Definitely still working on my WordPress. And, I think being with SAC.Media, like I told Tony at the beginning of the year, it got me back into the groove of things versus when, lockdown hit California, let alone Mount SAC. I was like a little sad because I was like, you know what, I'm finally going to get in that newsroom again. I'm going to meet the staff. I'm going to say hello. I'm going to say what's up. I'm going to introduce myself. And then boom, like everyone stay home. And I'm just like, what the heck? But, luckily Tony and Abraham reached out and I was able to talk with them. And Tony tells me every time, like, it just really trips me out. I know those aren't her words, but something on those lines, like, I never even met you, but here you are like on the SAC.Media team and being an editor and a writer. And I told her, I was like, I'm just happy to help. And that was my goal from the beginning of spring semester, was to get my butt back into the newsroom and doing what I love doing. Just being in that setting with newsroom and staff, and like just vibing out with everyone that's on the same page as I am. And I think that's awesome. I love journalists and buffs. Riley, like you said, news buffs. You have my respect. I think news buffs are very informative people. Like, they know their stuff. And yeah, my hat's off to all journalists. But for myself, I just want to start getting my stuff out there, my work out there. Like my writings, my pieces. Maybe even possibly just sending out a few links to certain prestigious outlets, and hopefully, getting my feet in that door. So that's just my personal goals for the year.
It feels great when it happens. Trust me, I've gotten one story published on the California Sportsman. Jalen, you want to chime in?
Yeah, my personal goal, I don't know if it's going to happen, but fingers crossed, I want us, or at least a few of us, to be able to go into the newsroom so bad, whether that requires masks and 6 feet apart, I don't care. I hope that we get to go back in there. I think it would just be so fun.
Even if our newsroom is on the football field. 70
yeah,
feet wide.
literally though. Like, I don't mind. Also, like, yeah, like, even though I'm the news editor, I do think that I'm more passionate about, like, A&E stuff, and that's kind of what we're doing in the 102 class. As of in the future, I am also interested in, news and the investigative stuff, just like what Riley was talking about. Super interested in that. I think that's so important. But to me, like, what I see my career being in is A&E and doing in-depth interviews with artists and art pieces and music and the industry and all of that. Like, that's what I want to get involved in. So that's what I'm going to try and step into a little bit more. Maybe get out of my comfort zone, and we'll see if anybody is, like, doing shows or displaying their works anytime soon, but that's what I'm trying to do.
Definitely.
Jalen, I actually might have a contact to give to you. I do know of some people who are putting on tiny, not public shows, but definitely performing to small groups of people right now, just to get their music out there.
Cool. Yeah, give me their contact.
Can't wait to see that story going up on SAC.Media. But definitely a lot of, great insight. I'm glad to see that we're all on such diverse, career paths. Our newsroom definitely has a bright future ahead of us, and I can't wait to see what we all end up doing in a few years' time. I did want to bring up, and I noticed that a lot of us, have been covering things. In fact, all of us in this group have covered things during COVID. And, definitely this pandemic has put a huge dent in the workflow of journalists, changing things up, like definitely shoving the landscape a far shove to who knows where. This election coming up, we all want to see things, well, they'll never come back to normal, but being a little bit safer. What are some of your hopes when it comes to COVID in the future? And then I'll go into another thing about reporting during COVID. Want to go ahead and start, Caesar?
Well, I have a few thoughts on that specific subject, that topic. One is what's going to happen with the vaccine. That's also writing on who's going to win the election. One candidate wants to wait until there's a vaccine that has been tested thoroughly, and I believe, wants to make it so that we must take it, while the other candidate is rushing to finish a vaccine and also saying that, you could take it if you want. I could be wrong. I need to fact check that, but as far as those lines go, it's just one of those things where, like when when the Spanish flu was around, or SARS, well, this is SARS too. It just, I believe it took a while for things to go back to normal, and they did. And it's just, I'm always constantly on the fence about whether I want to call something normal or whether I want to, take the proper steps to lead back into a normal life. And I guess an example of that would be just, wearing a mask. I've spoken to a lot of people that just don't like wearing a mask, and it's it's one of those things. Or if you ask me for my opinion, I just think that it's something we should all wear. It's it's come to be a respectful thing. Just wear a mask, be respectful of the people around you, and also just for your own safety, regardless of where you're at. I mean, yeah, sure, you don't have to wear a mask when you're at home, but if you're going to go into an establishment and they're asking you to wear a mask, don't be a jerk. Just wear a mask, or don't even go out at all. And a lot of people want to sit on that argument that, oh, I have health issues, or my child can't breathe, and it's like, my opinion is, I personally think you shouldn't be stepping out of your house, and your child shouldn't be stepping out of the house if wearing a mask and being safe is a problem. But as far as being normal again, I just think that I just hope that everyone could just be on the same page and just stay proactive. And if we can all just get through this together, I'm sure things will somewhat, in that sense, go back to normal with coronavirus.
Yeah, I just hope that whoever wins, we can get back to some legislation of shutting things down. I really think that things need to be shut down again. I work in a restaurant, and it just seems so pointless to have it open, and just dangerous. Like, I literally watch violations happen every day, and this isn't just my restaurant. I know for a fact that thousands of restaurants are experiencing the same thing, where it's like, it's really not safe, and nobody should be attending a restaurant, even though I understand that businesses are suffering. But that's when a government should step in and offer more support, and there needs to be that system where there's more support, and there's more support for citizens. Same with the financial aid. Like, when is that coming? Again, our president put that on hold until after the election, so I'm hoping that we can get some legislation in quickly to address that problem. That's my hope.
Jalen, I completely understand where you're coming from. Prior to COVID, I was working in a restaurant as well. I was actually working in an extremely busy chain restaurant. And before COVID and before the requirements of wearing gloves and wearing masks and all of that, you could have seen all of the violations that happened when a restaurant was functioning, without the risk of a global pandemic. And of course, I believe that all restaurants that have patrons coming in are, they are a hot spot for a breakout to happen. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And as far as a lockdown from either of the candidates, I do believe it might be in our best interest. My only concern would be not one of the candidates, as far as the aid, the financial aid coming from Social Security, but the government, as far as the House of Representatives and the Senate. I believe that we desperately need to see more bipartisanship in the government, because both sides of the aisle are, definitely veering away from that. They very strongly want to be the person in power, or the side of the government in power, and if they're not, they refuse to make any compromises or make any budgets. And at the end of the day, those people aren't there to keep their seats. They're there to help us. And right now, all of these citizens need help. So what I would love to see after whatever the outcome of the election is definitely more bipartisanship out of our Senate and our representative house.
Definitely. Definitely. Okay, I'd like to thank you all for such valuable input. This just in from CNN and NBC are reporting that it will probably be until Friday before the election is called. That being said, I feel like it would be a good idea to end the live stream right now. Don't be rushing out yet, guys. But I'd like to thank all of you who are watching us, all 5 of you. And like to say again, for more up-to-date live and on-the-spot election coverage, go ahead and check out our Twitter at SAC.Scene. We're getting updates by the minute, and so we'll be covering this as the votes are coming in, the ballots come in, and as events develop. So thank you all so much for watching, and thank you all for being here. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the stream. Give me 1 second. Okay.